Do you remember the foods that defined summer? Not the ones from glossy magazines or fancy cafes. I'm talking about the chilled, jiggly, creamy dishes that filled Tupperware bowls and casserole trays on back porches and church picnic tables. The foods your grandmother used to pull from the fridge with a proud smile. The ones that didn't need an oven, didn't try to be fancy, they just were. They tasted like sunshine, family, and the slow, sweet hum of July evenings. But somewhere along the way, we stopped making them. They vanished one picnic at a time. What happened to frozen fruit salad squares? To molded shrimp mousse, cold vinegar cucumber salads, and frosted sandwich loaves? They were strange, sure. Jiggly, colorful, sometimes confusing, but always unforgettable. Some were elegant. Some were odd. All of them were summer. These weren't just recipes, they were rituals. Unspoken traditions passed between generations, clipped from magazines, scribbled in the margins of church cookbooks. Today, we're opening the recipe box of the past. Rediscovering 15 forgotten summer dishes that once ruled potlucks, pool parties, and bridal showers. Some will make you smile. Some will make you cringe. But every single one will remind you of a time when food was about togetherness, not perfection. So grab a cold drink, settle in, and let's remember the summer foods no one makes anymore, but maybe, just maybe, should. There was a time when dessert didn't come from a box in the freezer aisle, it came from your own kitchen, made the night before, chilled until firm, and sliced with pride. Frozen fruit salad squares were once a summertime signature at church picnics, bridal showers, and Sunday suppers under the trees. They weren't fancy, but they were adored. This dish had everything summer needed: no oven, no heat, and no fuss. Just a mixing bowl, a tray, and a few sweet, creamy ingredients. The base was usually whipped cream or whipped topping, folded gently with canned fruit cocktail, cherries, grapes, pears, and peaches, each piece glistening like stained glass. Add in mini marshmallows, maybe chopped nuts, a dash of lemon zest if you were feeling bold, and sometimes even shredded coconut for that tropical flair. Once the mixture was ready, it was pressed into a rectangular dish, smoothed out, and tucked into the freezer overnight. The next day, it would be sliced into neat little squares, soft pastel-colored blocks that held their shape like cold velvet. When placed on a platter under the summer sun, they looked like edible confetti. Kids loved them because they were sweet and fluffy. Moms loved them because they could be made ahead of time. And everyone else loved how cool and refreshing they felt after fried chicken, baked beans, or grilled corn on the cob. You didn't need ice cream. You didn't need frosting. You just needed a freezer and a warm day. These frozen treats were especially popular during the 1950s and 60s, when convenience was king and gelatin-based desserts ruled summer spreads. But as tastes changed and fancier desserts took over, the humble frozen fruit salad square quietly disappeared. Still, if you close your eyes and picture a floral print tablecloth fluttering in the breeze, you might just remember how one bite could taste like summer itself. There was a time when elegance came in the form of a wobble. Yes, before Pinterest-perfect cakes and neon-colored popsicles, summer tables proudly displayed one curious, glistening crown, the tomato aspic mold. Today, it might raise eyebrows, but back in the 1950s and 60s, this savory gelatin dish was considered the height of warm-weather sophistication. Aspic was more than just Jell-O, it was an art. Housewives poured hours into perfecting it, crafting vibrant, molded sculptures that shimmered under kitchen lights. The tomato aspic, in particular, was a summer favorite. It began with tomato juice as the base, bright and tangy, with lemon juice for a touch of acidity. Unflavored gelatin gave it form, and Worcestershire sauce added depth. From there, the mix-ins began. Chopped celery, green peppers, sliced olives, sometimes even small shrimp, each carefully selected, each meant to float in perfect suspension. Once poured into a fluted mold, it was left to chill in the fridge until firm. And when it came out, it jiggled like a dream and looked like edible stained glass. Served atop crisp iceberg lettuce with a dollop of mayonnaise or cottage cheese, it was both side dish and conversation piece. Guests admired it before they tasted it, and often, the brave ones found it oddly refreshing. Cold, savory, and just acidic enough to balance heavier picnic fare like fried chicken or ham. But as the decades passed, aspic lost its crown. Its gelatinous texture fell out of favor, and by the 1980s, it was labeled too weird, too retro, or simply forgotten. Now, it lives only in old cookbooks and the memories of those who once spooned it carefully onto paper plates at family reunions. Yet for a brief, shimmering moment in culinary history, tomato aspic wasn't just accepted, it was admired. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to bring the wobble back. It looked like a joke. Pale green, fluffy, and filled with marshmallows, the kind of dish you'd expect a kid to make for fun. But in the 1970s, Watergate salad was the star of summer reunions, church potlucks, and family picnics. Light, sweet, and chilled to perfection, it wasn't just dessert. It was a feeling. No one really knows why it was called Watergate salad. Some say it was a cheeky nod to the political scandal, others claim it got the name after being served at the Watergate Hotel. But whatever the origin, this mysterious, minty green fluff caused a stir and became a legend. The ingredients were simple, even strange by today's standards: pistachio pudding mix, canned crushed pineapple, juice and all, mini marshmallows, whipped topping, and chopped walnuts. Everything was stirred together in one big bowl and chilled until the flavors melded into a soft, creamy, dreamy mess. And people loved it. Grandmothers served it in glass bowls at the center of the table, like a trophy. Kids scooped it high on their plates, sneaking seconds when no one was looking. It paired perfectly with fried chicken, baked beans, and potato salad, or it could stand alone as the sweet finish to a summer meal. There was something unapologetically joyful about Watergate salad. It didn't try to be gourmet. It wasn't healthy or trendy. But it was easy, fun, and made with love, and that was enough. As the years passed and clean eating took over, dishes like Watergate faded into the background. Too artificial, too neon, too nostalgic. But for those who remember the pastel salads of summer past, one spoonful is all it takes to bring the memories back. It was more than pudding and marshmallows. It was a time, a place, a table full of laughter and sunshine. And that makes it unforgettable. Imagine slicing into a glossy, lime green dome only to find carrots, celery, and cabbage suspended inside like vegetables trapped in time. Sounds bizarre now, doesn't it? But in the 1950s and 60s, Jell-O vegetable salad was the queen of cool summer sides. It wasn't just food. It was style. It was confidence. It was modern. Back then, gelatin wasn't just for desserts. It was a blank canvas for everything, especially vegetables. Housewives clipped the recipe from glossy magazines or jotted it down from local homemakers clubs. Why? Because it was cheap, didn't wilt in the heat, and looked like art on the table. The process started with lime gelatin, sweet, citrusy, and vivid. Once dissolved and slightly cooled, it became a playground for crunchy add-ins: shredded carrots, chopped celery, finely sliced green onions, maybe even slivers of bell pepper or cabbage. For the bold, a little vinegar was added for zing. It would be poured into a ring mold, sometimes over a layer of cottage cheese or mayonnaise, then refrigerated until firm. When it emerged, gleaming, wiggling, and jewel-toned, it stole the show. Jell-O vegetable salad was a visual centerpiece, often served on a bed of lettuce with a dollop of mayo or cottage cheese in the center. It was meant to impress, and it did. Guests marveled at how it held its shape. Kids poked it with forks. Adults praised its freshness and crunch. But as tastes changed and gelatin lost its culinary spotlight, these veggie-packed molds were quietly retired. By the 1980s, they were more punchline than potluck staple. Today, the idea of vegetables inside gelatin makes most folks shudder. But for a generation, this dish was revolutionary, cool, colorful, and endlessly creative. It was a symbol of domestic flair and summer pride. So while it may never make a comeback on modern menus, it still jiggles in the memories of those who grew up seeing it sparkle on every picnic table. At first glance, it looked like a fancy dessert, maybe a pastel-colored layer cake chilled to perfection. But slice it open, and surprise, it was filled with ham salad, egg spread, and chicken. Welcome to the curious charm of the frosted sandwich loaf, a forgotten masterpiece of summer bridal showers and ladies' luncheons from the 1940s through the 70s. This wasn't your everyday sandwich. It was a showstopper. The process began with a loaf of white sandwich bread, unsliced and perfectly square. The crusts were trimmed off with precision. Then the loaf was sliced horizontally into layers, each one becoming a blank slate for a different creamy filling. Egg salad. Chicken salad. Maybe ham mixed with pickle relish. Once stacked and aligned, the entire loaf was frosted not with sugar or buttercream, but with whipped cream cheese thinned with a little milk. It was spread smoothly across all sides, just like a cake. For an extra flourish, it might be tinted pink, green, or yellow, then decorated with pimento strips, parsley, or a ring of sliced olives around the edges. The finished product was chilled until firm and sliced into neat rectangles. Served cold on delicate plates beside iced tea and ribbon jello, it was equal parts curious and classy. Guests always did a double take, and then reached for seconds. The frosted sandwich loaf represented more than just creativity. It was convenience, elegance, and practicality all wrapped into one tidy block. It fed a crowd, held up in the summer heat, and looked good doing it. But eventually, it faded. Tastes changed, and what once seemed modern became tacky. Layered meat spreads gave way to simpler snacks and trendy finger foods. The sandwich loaf was packed away with the silver tongs and lace doilies. Yet for those who remember slicing into its cool, creamy layers on a summer afternoon, laughter in the background, sunlight through the windows, it wasn't just food. It was celebration. Before store-bought dressings took over the shelves, and before clean eating became a buzzword, there was a potato salad that felt downright elegant. It was cool, creamy, and kissed with herbs, the kind of dish that graced garden parties, health-conscious potlucks, and glossy magazine spreads. They called it Green Goddess potato salad, and for a time, it ruled the summer table. Unlike the heavy, mayo-laden potato salads of the post-war era, this version felt fresh and bright. It began, as always, with tender boiled red potatoes, skin on and sliced thick. But the magic came in the dressing, a light green blend of mayonnaise, sour cream, lemon juice, garlic, chives, parsley, and a whisper of anchovy paste. Some added tarragon or basil to push the herbal notes even further. The potatoes were gently tossed in this green silk, then folded with crisp vegetables, sliced radishes, celery, or blanched green beans, giving every bite a balance of softness and crunch. It wasn't just tasty, it was beautiful. Served in glass bowls, garnished with fresh dill or a sprig of chive, it looked like summer in a serving dish. In the 1970s, it was a sign that the cook was in the know. It felt health-forward, gourmet even, without being fussy. It offered something cooler and more refined than eggy picnic fare. No mustard. No pickles. Just herbs, lemon, and a touch of green goddess mystery. But like many summer icons, its time passed. Bottled dressings replaced homemade magic. Pasta salads pushed potato salad to the side. The anchovy-phobic avoided it. And slowly, the green goddess faded from backyards and buffets alike. Still, for those who tasted it in their youth on patios shaded by umbrellas, with iced tea sweating beside their plate, it remains unmatched. Cool, creamy, and kissed with garden freshness, it deserves more than a footnote. Up next, a dish so strange, it sounded like a prank, but it once stole the spotlight at summer luncheons. You won't believe what came next. It sounds like a punchline, like something you'd dare someone to eat. But once upon a mid-century summer, ham and banana hollandaise was a real, beloved dish. Yes, ripe bananas, wrapped in salty ham, smothered in creamy hollandaise sauce, and baked until bubbling. Believe it or not, it wasn't a joke. It was lunch. This strange-sounding recipe first appeared in community cookbooks and homemaker magazines in the 1950s, a time when creativity in the kitchen was king, and exotic flavor pairings were a point of pride. Housewives wanted to surprise their guests, to serve something fancy without straying far from pantry staples. This dish checked every box. Here's how it worked. Firm bananas were peeled and wrapped in slices of deli ham, then laid side by side in a buttered baking dish. Over the top, spoonfuls of rich, velvety hollandaise sauce, often from a packet, but sometimes homemade, were poured generously. Then the whole thing went into the oven until the sauce thickened and the bananas softened, releasing their sugary scent into the hammy, buttery mix. Served hot on china plates, often beside a scoop of chilled macaroni salad or a slice of molded gelatin, it was seen as both upscale and daring. Sweet, salty, creamy, and just strange enough to be memorable. Some loved it. Others smiled politely. But no one forgot it. Ham and banana hollandaise captured the spirit of a time when recipes were equal parts adventure and economy. Bananas were still considered tropical, ham was always on hand, and hollandaise added that touch of French flair. For a while, it worked. Then it didn't. As the decades rolled on, the dish became a curiosity, a relic from the era of casseroles and molded salads. Today, it's remembered more for its oddness than its taste. But for those who grew up with it on their grandmother's luncheon table, nestled between green salads and deviled eggs, it was part of summer's quirky charm. Next, let's cool things down with a side dish that was crisp, tangy, and straight from the fridge. Before store-bought coleslaw or plastic tubs of potato salad, there was a bowl that always made its way to the summer table, cold, crisp, and quietly perfect. Cucumber and onion vinegar salad was never flashy, never fussy, but it delivered every time. It cooled your plate, cleansed your palate, and whispered of gardens in Grandma's kitchen. This salad was a staple in farmhouses and small-town kitchens from the 1930s through the 1970s. Simple ingredients, no cooking, and the kind of flavor that deepened the longer it sat. You started with fresh cucumbers, sliced thin, skins on or off depending on family tradition, and white onions cut into paper-thin half-moons. These were tossed in a mixture of vinegar, sugar, cold water, and salt. The dressing was always a balance, not too tart, not too sweet. Just right. Some families added dill, others a pinch of celery seed. A few tossed in thin slices of green pepper or crushed ice to keep it icy cold. But the foundation was always the same, fresh vegetables marinating until tender, crisp, and bursting with tang. This salad lived in glass bowls, the kind that fogged on the outside after hours in the fridge. It was always made ahead, sometimes the night before, giving the flavors time to bloom. You'd see it beside fried chicken, pork chops, hot dogs, or even cold beans. It went with everything, a perfect counterpoint to rich summer fare. Kids might turn up their noses at the vinegar, but adults knew better. It was a workhorse, a refresher, a dish that cost next to nothing but never disappointed. Over time, it faded. Bagged salads took over. Bottled dressings became the norm. And the old vinegar soak became a memory, passed down in recipe boxes or scribbled in the margins of old cookbooks. But for anyone who ever snuck a cold cucumber slice from the fridge on a hot July day, you know. It wasn't just salad. It was summer in a bite. Up next, something molded, pink, and unmistakably elegant, if you dared. Ask ChatGPT. It looked like something from a magazine spread, pink, smooth, and shaped like a perfect ring. But molded shrimp mousse wasn't just for show. Once upon a summer, it was the ultimate party piece, a cool, savory delicacy that graced garden luncheons, church potlucks, and buffet tables with quiet coastal glamour. This wasn't your average seafood dish. It was a blend of elegance, convenience, and just enough flair to feel impressive. Housewives in the 1950s and 60s loved recipes that felt upscale but could be made with pantry staples, and this was exactly that. Start with cooked shrimp, chopped fine and folded gently into a mixture of cream cheese, mayonnaise, and lemon juice. For a touch of color and extra flavor, many added a few spoonfuls of tomato soup or a dash of chili sauce. The secret ingredient? Unflavored gelatin. It gave the mousse its structure, that signature jiggle that let it pop right out of its mold with perfect edges. The mixture was poured into a ring mold or scalloped form, chilled for hours, then carefully unmolded onto a platter. Garnished with parsley sprigs, lemon slices, or green olives, it looked like edible sculpture. Crackers were arranged around it like a crown, and guests would gather to admire, before scooping bites with a small knife and a smile. Served cold, it was creamy, briny, and just tangy enough to be refreshing in the summer heat. It tasted like shrimp cocktail's smoother, cooler cousin. At a time when gelatin dishes ruled the table, molded shrimp mousse was a mark of a hostess who knew how to impress. But as the decades passed, molded foods lost their magic. Gelatin went out of fashion, and savory mousses felt outdated. Soon, shrimp mousse was relegated to retro recipe books and distant memories. Still, for those who remember lifting a slice under a shady canopy with iced tea in hand, it wasn't just a dish. It was a summer ritual of elegance and ease. Next up, a crunchier, sweeter twist on classic fried chicken right from the cereal box. Ask ChatGPT. Before breadcrumbs came in cans and air fryers promised guilt-free crispiness, summer picnics had their own golden standard, cornflake crumb fried chicken. It was crunchy, flaky, and kissed with a whisper of sweetness. This wasn't fast food, it was backyard mastery. The secret ingredient? Breakfast cereal. Yes, simple, unsweetened cornflakes straight from the box, crushed by hand or rolling pin into jagged, golden crumbs. Cooks discovered early on that cornflakes clung better than flour, crisped faster than breadcrumbs, and added a unique texture that was both satisfying and light. The process was simple and soulful. Chicken pieces, bone-in, often thighs or drumsticks, were dipped in buttermilk or beaten egg, then rolled in seasoned crushed cornflakes. A bit of salt, black pepper, paprika, and maybe a dash of garlic powder gave it a savory backbone. Some families even added a pinch of sugar to boost that sweet-savory balance. Then came the decision, to bake or to fry. Frying gave you a sizzling, golden crust with every bite. Baking gave you that same crunch with less mess and guilt. Either way, the result was irresistible. The crust shattered delicately with each bite, revealing tender, juicy meat underneath. Cornflake chicken held up beautifully in picnic baskets and on paper plates under shady oaks. Unlike traditional fried chicken, it didn't get soggy as quickly and tasted just as good cold. It was often served beside vinegar salads, deviled eggs, or Jell-O molds, completing the perfect summer spread. Cereal companies even caught on printing recipes on the backs of boxes, encouraging home cooks to get creative. And they did. For a while, cornflake crusted everything showed up in kitchens across America. But over time, convenience took over. Frozen tenders, pre-seasoned coatings, and fast food replaced homemade crunch. The cornflake era faded quietly. Still, for those who remember the sound of the first bite echoing through a screened-in porch, cornflake crumb fried chicken wasn't just dinner. It was summer's golden promise, simple, satisfying, and made with love. Next up, a chilled, citrusy pie that lived in the icebox and in our hearts. Ask ChatGPT. Long before no-bake cheesecakes and instant puddings filled the dessert scene, summer sweet tooths were satisfied with something simpler: icebox lemon pie. Tart, creamy, and chilled to perfection, It was the kind of dessert that didn't need fuss, frills, or even an oven. Just a few ingredients, a refrigerator, and a hot day. This pie came straight from the era of icebox cooking, when homes didn't always have full refrigeration, and summertime desserts needed to keep cool without heating up the house. That's where this gem came in, refreshing, reliable, and bright enough to cut through even the stickiest heat. The crust was usually a graham cracker base, crushed and mixed with butter, then pressed into a pie plate. No baking required, just a quick chill. The filling was a simple mix of sweetened condensed milk, fresh lemon juice, and a few egg yolks. The acid from the lemon magically thickened the milk, creating a custard-like texture without any stovetop stirring. Some recipes called for folding in whipped cream or topping the pie with soft, pillowy meringue or more whipped topping. Others left it bare, just cool, smooth lemon filling in a crumbly crust. Either way, it went into the icebox, what we now call the fridge, and waited. That chill time was key. It firmed up the pie and melded the flavors into one bright, tangy slice of heaven. Icebox lemon pie was a staple at backyard cookouts, summer birthdays, and family reunions. Served cold, often straight from the dish, it offered a burst of citrus and cream with every forkful. The kind of dessert that left you feeling lighter, not heavier, a rare feat for something so rich. Eventually, it slipped into the shadows. Pies got more complicated, or disappeared altogether. But this one? It still lives in recipe cards, passed down and yellowed with time. For those who remember that first cold slice on a hot July afternoon, it wasn't just a pie. It was a sigh of relief, summer's sweet exhale. Next, a wobbly salad in a ring mold, with cottage cheese. Let's go there. Ask ChatGPT. There was a time when summer salads didn't come in plastic tubs or leafy greens. They came molded, chilled, and proudly displayed in a ring like a crown for the picnic table. Among the most beloved? The strange yet refreshing pineapple cottage cheese ring salad. Sweet, tangy, creamy, and just a little jiggly, it was a staple of warm weather luncheons and potlucks from the 1950s through the 70s. This dish was a marvel of balance. It combined the tropical brightness of canned crushed pineapple with the cool, mild creaminess of cottage cheese. Lime or lemon gelatin gave it structure and that signature shimmer. Some versions included chopped nuts for a little crunch or maraschino cherries for added flair. Others folded in shredded carrots or even slivers of green pepper for contrast. The mixture was poured into a ring mold, the kind your grandmother kept tucked in the cabinet above the stove, and chilled until firm. Once unmolded onto a platter lined with lettuce leaves, it glowed like a stained glass window under summer sunlight. But the secret wasn't just in the shape, it was in the center. That hollow was often filled with more cottage cheese, whipped cream, or even mayonnaise, depending on the cook's preference. Served cold, each slice delivered a curious blend of flavors: sweet pineapple, tangy citrus, cool curds, and that unmistakable gelatin texture. To some, it sounded like a culinary dare. But to many families, it was tradition. It was light, it was cool, and it held up beautifully at outdoor gatherings. No wilting, no melting, just slice and serve. Over time, molded salads like this lost their charm. Gelatin fell out of favor. Cottage cheese was pushed aside for yogurt. But for those who grew up watching this salad wiggle its way to the center of every summer spread, it's more than nostalgia, it's memory on a plate. Next, let's head to the garden for a dish that put tomatoes front and center, stuffed, chilled, and ready to serve. Ask ChatGPT. Before avocado toast or mason jar salads, summer lunches had a different kind of stark, cool, juicy tuna-stuffed tomatoes. They were colorful, refreshing, and perfect for when the sun was too hot to even think about cooking. Served on floral plates with crackers or a crisp pickle spear, this dish was as elegant as it was economical. It all started with the tomato ripe, red, and still warm from the garden or farmer's market. Cooks would carefully slice off the top, scoop out the juicy pulp, and turn the hollowed shell into a chilled edible bowl. Then came the filling, classic tuna salad made from canned tuna, mayonnaise, chopped celery, sometimes pickle relish or hard-boiled egg. A dash of salt and pepper, maybe a squirt of lemon juice, and the mixture was ready. The tuna was spooned back into the tomato, overflowing just enough to look generous. For extra flair, some home cooks would garnish the top with a black olive, a parsley sprig, or a dusting of paprika. It was simple, but it looked fancy, the kind of dish that made a weeknight lunch feel like a tea party. Tuna stuffed tomatoes were especially popular from the 1940s through the 1970s. They were featured in church cookbooks, women's magazines, and summertime menus across the country. No stove, no oven, no problem, just assemble, chill, and serve. Light but satisfying, they paired beautifully with cottage cheese, Jell-O salads, or crisp saltines on the side. But as trends shifted and tuna lost its charm, the dish slowly faded. People moved on to wraps, smoothies, and salads in clamshell boxes. The humble stuffed tomato became too old-fashioned for modern plates. Still, if you've ever taken a cold bite of that creamy tuna against the burst of juicy tomato on a hot afternoon, you know the magic. It wasn't just healthy. It was smart, stylish, and pure summertime tradition. Up next, a creamy chicken classic, served chilled and crowned with peas, and not at all like you remember it. Let's dig in. Most people remember chicken a la king as a warm, creamy comfort dish ladled over toast points or biscuits. But there was once a summer twist that turned this rich, royal-sounding meal into something entirely refreshing: cold chicken a la king. Served chilled and spooned into puff pastry shells or over crisp lettuce leaves, it was a crown jewel of summer luncheons from the 1940s through the 70s. The ingredients were familiar: diced cooked chicken, usually leftover from Sunday dinner, a simple cream sauce made with butter, flour, milk, and chicken broth, all thickened just enough to hold its shape. But here's where the magic happened. Once the sauce cooled slightly, peas, chopped pimentos, and sliced mushrooms were folded in. Then the entire dish was refrigerated until cold and set. It emerged as a creamy, velvety chicken salad with an elegant twist, not mayo-based, but sauce-based. Some home cooks added a splash of sherry or lemon juice for a tangy note. Others replaced part of the cream with sour cream or evaporated milk. No matter the variation, the result was cool, savory, and satisfying. Cold chicken a la king was often served in individual pastry cups, molded rice rings, or even hollowed-out tomatoes. It was considered refined, just fancy enough for bridge clubs, wedding showers, or ladies' luncheons under the shade of a magnolia tree. It didn't drip, it didn't melt, and it looked beautiful on a plate. But eventually, the dish disappeared. People stopped making cream sauces from scratch. Cold chicken fell out of favor. And the idea of serving something a la king without heating it seemed odd. Still, for those who remember a chilled forkful on a sweltering afternoon, paired with a glass of iced tea and a whisper of gossip, it was a moment of cool grace in the middle of the heat. Next, let's spoon up a salad that didn't just wobble, it sparkled, complete with citrus, shredded carrots, and plenty of nostalgia. Ask ChatGPT. Before fruit came pre-packaged and pre-diced in plastic cups, summer sweetness often arrived in the form of a jiggling, citrusy glow. Sunshine Jell-O salad, with its golden hue and refreshing zing, was a picnic table classic from the 1950s through the 70s. Bright, cheerful, and oddly elegant, it was the dessert salad hybrid that brought a smile to every summer gathering. The base was always orange or lemon gelatin mixed not just with water, but with the juice from crushed pineapple or mandarin oranges. This gave it a deeper fruit flavor, and sometimes a bit of tang. Then came the add-ins: shredded carrots for crunch, crushed pineapple for sweetness, and occasionally chopped nuts for texture. Some cooks folded in a dollop of sour cream or cottage cheese to make it extra creamy and mellow. Poured into a ring mold or glass dish, it was left to chill until set. When unmolded, it shimmered like morning light, hence the name. Garnished with lettuce leaves or sprigs of mint, it wasn't just food, it was centerpiece worthy. Every bite was a mix of texture and temperature. Cold, slightly tangy, just sweet enough. The carrots gave it snap, the pineapple gave it juice, and the jello gave it structure. It was often served as a side, not a dessert, usually sitting proudly beside ham, deviled eggs, or fried chicken. Why did people love it so much? Because it was easy, beautiful, and surprisingly refreshing. In a time before central air and endless refrigeration, a cool slice of sunshine salad was like edible relief from the summer heat. But over time, Jell-O lost its sparkle. People grew suspicious of gelatin in savory dishes. Carrots in Jell-O became the stuff of jokes. And sunshine salad, once a summer star, faded quietly from our plates. Still, for those who remember its wiggly cheer on a hot day, it was more than salad. It was tradition, sunshine in solid form. Next, let's take a detour to dessert, one that chilled in the freezer and tasted like a candy bar turned into pie. Ask ChatGPT. And that's just the first half of the forgotten summer table, a time when dishes wiggled, crunched, chilled, and charmed their way into our memories. These 15 recipes weren't just meals, they were moments crafted with care, shared with family, and served with pride under the warmth of the sun. But we're only halfway there. In the next part, we'll uncover 15 more lost summer treasures, from frozen pies to soda shop shakes, and dishes so strange they're impossible to forget. So don't miss what's coming next. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready to rediscover the flavors that made summer unforgettable.